Started. All right, hello everyone. Thank you so much for attending Fusion's community event. This normally would be in person, but in light of the situation, we have gone virtual. So thank you so much for taking time out of your day to be with us. We really appreciate it. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Mackenzie Douglas. I'm the Director of Admissions and Outreach for Fusion Academy Scottsdale. And in case you're not familiar with who Fusion is, we are an accredited private school serving grades 6 through 12. We offer personalized one-to-one learning instruction for our students, and we have a campus in Scottsdale. And in light of COVID-19, we are 100% virtual with our live one-to-one classes. Just a few housekeeping matters for you to consider. If you haven't already, please put yourself on mute. We want to make sure that we can hear Rachel clearly. So we'd appreciate if you can all go on mute. And then also, if you have any questions during the presentation, go ahead and drop those in the chat. I will be moderating that, and hopefully we will be able to answer everyone's questions before the end of the presentation. And today we have the pleasure of learning from Rachel Rubenstein on the important topic of keeping your kid on track during the COVID-19 era, emotionally, socially, and academically. And Rachel is a licensed clinical social worker with 20 years of social work and counseling experience. Her private practice is focused on assisting kids and young adults learn important skills needed for a successful life. She is also the executive director of Scottsdale Youth Community Coalition with the goal of making a positive difference on a community level. Thank you so much for being with us today, Rachel.
Hi, our sound just got a little funny. Can you hear me okay? Okay. Mackenzie, thank you so much for having me. I know Patrick as well. He's the principal at the school, are on the line. Fusion is one of those resources that I think we all need to know about right now. Because we're going through such an awkward, out of sorts time academically in particular. And Mackenzie and I were talking about how Fusion is going to be having some programming over the summer to help kids who are, we're all going through this crisis homeschooling. So we're all in it together. So before I get started, I just wanted to point out that picture. It is so scary to me, that picture of a child and maybe her mom in a mask. It's just, this is such unprecedented times. That picture really kind of summed it up for me. So I'm gonna give a lot of information. It's a broad amount of information, not specific to any one small detail. Like Mackenzie said, if you have a specific question, please send in the chat. If we don't address it during the, someone needs to mute. I don't know who that is. But if we don't address it during our conversation on this webinar, contact me or contact Mackenzie, and I'll do my best to address that for you. So thank you again, Mackenzie, for having me. This is a presentation that I've given in a different format. I gave it maybe a year or two ago at a school, and it didn't have during the COVID-19 era. So I have altered this so much to be specific for what's going on for our kids right now, because we're really living through history, and which is existential, right? It's like such a big time for us, and to realize that we're getting to write our history. I was listening to NPR today, and he was having a project about writing our own archives. And I thought that was really interesting. And hopefully as parents and teachers and adults who love kids, we can help structure this in as positive a way as possible. What else do I want to tell you? The focus is going to be mostly tweens and teens, like 9-ish and older, the information that I'm giving you. Because if I were to do all kids, I think we'd be on here for like 5 hours. So you can take this information and consider it developmentally if your child is younger, and do some of these things in an age-appropriate way if your child is younger. But it's mostly focused on our tweens and teens. And I know we have a couple of tweens and teens out there, so hi. Okay, let's get started. Again, my name is Rachel Rubenstein, and I know a lot of you. It's so good to have like my friends out there and my community out there. I've been a social worker, like Mackenzie said, for about 20 years. I've been in private practice now. I'm going on my 13th year. I see mostly adolescents and young adults. I also see not older adults, but adults like me, mature parents and older adults too. And I'm an EMDR provider. That's a therapy that focuses on trauma resolution, and it's fantastic. I was also asked to be the executive director of the Scottsdale Youth and Community Coalition in November, and that's been an incredible experience. It's a group of, we're up to about 50, maybe 60 professionals, parents, organizations in the Scottsdale area that are focused on helping our youth. Our vision is that all Scottsdale area youth are living to their fullest potential, and our mission is to build an alliance to support Scottsdale area youth by empowering the community in the areas of mental health, substance abuse, and eating disorders. And everyone is welcome, even if you don't even live in Arizona. You are welcome to join us. We have our website going up. We thought it was going to go up last week, but it didn't go up last week. So we're hoping for this coming up week. And we have amazing resources, and we're really just looking for a way to support the amazing programs that we do have going on in the Valley so that it's more accessible to everybody. Side note, so this information is meant to be informational and educational. This doesn't take the place of therapy or counseling. I always tell all my clients, and the kids usually like roll their eyes at me. I say, better be safe than sorry. So if you have any concern, reach out to me, reach out to your mental health care provider, find someone to talk to. Because during this presentation, we might be bringing up topics and you'll say, oh, I didn't think that was an issue before, but maybe it is now. And this, again, is just educational to kind of bring awareness, and hopefully you'll get a couple of tips that will help you with your kid. There'll be resources at the end and my information at the end. So when we are talking about keeping our kids on track, I feel like we need to start with us, the parents and the adults that love our kids. Because if we're not well, our kids are not going to be well. So we take care of ourselves so that we can take care of our family. And this can be done, and it's difficult because a lot of us are experiencing a lot of stress and change, job loss, job insecurity, so many uncertain things that I think now is really the time to focus on self-care. And we as parents and adults that love kids are the role models. So how we handle the news and some of the scary reports we see helps our kids understand that we can go through it, we're dealing with it, they can too. So self-care in terms of focusing on healthy routines. Are you exercising? Are you eating a healthy diet? Are you getting enough sleep? Those things are really important. Boundaries. I had a friend actually say, but what about alone time? I feel like I should be with my family. And I want to talk about boundaries a little bit right now, that it's okay to take alone time. I certainly am, because I can't be with people all the time. We don't have our normal routines of taking our kids to school or driving to work or being with our colleagues. So it's important to take some time to have alone time and take time to have family time and to clarify those boundaries. Routines are very helpful, and I think those are helpful for us as adults as well as kids to know what to expect and to know how the day is going to look. And then mental health concerns, that it's okay to have responses to this pandemic. It's really a scary time. And I think it's not only a scary time for adults, but for kids as well. And we have responses to that. And our mental health is just as important as our physical health. I had a question submitted, and it's like the greatest question ever. It says, my kids are driving me nuts. What do I do? And I understand. I think that when we're noticing that we're feeling irritable or we're feeling frustrated or taxed ourselves, that's really a question of boundaries, and that we need to to go back and focus on our own self-care, because I know when I am feeling irritable, I take a look and I say, okay, are my needs being met? Am I doing okay? And it's okay to model self-care for your kids too. So we have to stay on track as well. So specifically for COVID-19 and our kids, this is kind of like why we're all here. So it's such a difficult time. This slide as well really hit me. It's like this sad kid on track or off track. We don't know, but we're figuring this out all together, and we're going to try and make it as on track as we can. So no research has been done formally on this. It's so new, but we can look back to other adverse times and see what's worked and what hasn't worked, and kind of make suppositions on things that we think would be helpful. So with that being said, some of the things that we might see with our kids is we might see grief, sadness, and feelings of loss. We might see worry and fear and frustration. I think the grief and loss is very important because a lot of our kids are missing out on once-in-a-lifetime milestones, graduating from high school, graduating from elementary school to middle school, not being able to say goodbye to teachers and friends, not being able to go to prom. That's a big deal. And while us as parents are dealing with maybe more global issues of the pandemic, I think it's really important to acknowledge that our kids are going through a very difficult time too. In terms of grief as well, there's something called ambiguous loss, which is so interesting. Ambiguous loss is kind of an undefined loss. There's no specific, like you have a puppy and then the puppy's gone. It's more like their whole environment is experiencing grief. So like not saying goodbye to friends, not being able to be in touch with friends, teachers, coaches, those kinds of things. Worry and fear, that's very normal too. We start getting concerned about worry and fear if it becomes extreme or persistent or dysfunctional. And when I say dysfunctional, I mean more of like a safety concern. And again, if you are ever curious, reach out to, there's going to be some hotlines at the end of this. You can reach out to me. Find a mental health care provider. Like I always say, if you're worried, talk to someone about it. And then we might see frustration in our kids, and it might come out in different ways. They may not come out saying, "Mom, I'm frustrated that I can't X, Y, and Z." With our younger kids, more times we see emotional expression in behaviors. But frustration in, learning this new online system. I know I'm frustrated with it. I'm figuring it out. If any of our teachers are out there, I'm figuring it out. And I'm so appreciative of our teachers and the hard work that they're putting in. And the frustration that we can't have our science fairs or be with our friends to work on things, or for our teenagers that they can't just go in the car and go to the movies, or have us wonderful parents with them 24 hours a day. That can be frustrating. Some of the things that we might do is problem solving, and problem solving in not solving the problem for your child, but working together with your child. I think there are some positives that can come out of this pandemic, and that is teaching our kids some new skills. So solving problems with your kids, and you can look online for all kinds of problem solving charts. I have some cool ones if you want to ask me about those, but really teaching kids that problems happen and we can manage them, and we can try and solve them or make them as okay as they can be. Again, boundaries is helping our kids have some structure is important, and I think that's helpful to kind of package the expectation of the day. As parents and adults, we can be accepting and empathetic. I think our kids are likely to have some regressive behaviors, maybe some things that you thought, oh, I didn't think they were going to do that anymore. And to know that this is going to pass, we are going to manage this, we're figuring it out together, but that it's okay to be upset. It's okay to be challenged by this pandemic. It's a big deal. And to be empathetic, just caring and listening without trying to judge or fix. So let's talk a little bit about a parent's job. As a parent, I think our job is to keep our kids safe, healthy, and happy, in that order. I tell my kids all the time that safe isn't always happy. So it's our job to keep our kids safe, especially during the shelter in place time. Our job as a parent is to help prepare our kids for adulthood. We can't make them learn things, but we can certainly provide opportunities. And decision-making, problem-solving, distress tolerance, so being able to manage stress, flexibility, and resilience are like the core, I think, the core skills that kids should learn. There's a wonderful physician, his name is Dr. Stuart Albon, and he is really the one that came up with these 5 different learning characteristics or learning opportunities. And he's on YouTube, he's fantastic. And he talks about that when there's an issue with a kid, it's usually not that they don't want to do well. It's really an issue of skill, not will. And for us to take that attitude and help our kids kind of navigate what's going okay and what could be better. But I love that, because it's not like a defiant kid who doesn't want to behave and do this and that. It might be an emotional regulation issue or the ability to manage distress. So I like that it's a skill building issue. Our job is to be a role model. That's hard sometimes, but it's okay. And it's okay if we're not perfect. I think some of the best times that we can be role models is when we do make a mistake or we aren't perfect or how we want to be, because then we can go back and clean it up. We can apologize, we can discuss it, we can say what we might do differently next time with our kids. So I think we are our kids' first teacher, and now we are with our kids all the time, and they're really going to look at us to role model. Hi, Davi. Hi. And then to know when to ask for support. So again, if you're concerned about something, reach out. It can't hurt to get another opinion. So let's talk a little bit about a child's job, because children have jobs too. The main one is to learn how to be an adult, and that is a big order. Our job as parents is to help them foster into healthy adults. But a child's job is to learn those things, or try to learn those things. Our kids are going to experiment and try new things, and that's part of developmentally who they are. Us as parents can try and help those experimentations be more positive and healthy. Our kids, it's their job to make new relationships and learn about how to have a friend, how to have conflict with a friend, and have relationships. It's also their job to make mistakes and learn. So we all make mistakes. The goal is to learn from that mistake and to make it better. Thomas Edison, some of you have heard me say this a ton of times, but Thomas Edison said that creating the light bulb took him 2,000 steps, because he kept failing or making mistakes. But he said there's no mistakes. It's all part of it. And I agree with that for our kids too, that it's all part of it. And sometimes our mistakes are our best learning opportunities. And then we want our kids to learn decision-making, problem-solving, distress tolerance, flexibility, and resilience. So let's talk a little bit about kids these days. And I thought it would be interesting to reflect on our own childhood. I know my childhood, I grew up in the 70s, is so different from my kids' childhood. It's noteworthy. So I thought it'd be interesting just to reflect and give a little bit of mindfulness to us as we were as kids and how we are as parents. So I want you to think about your own childhood and think about some of the issues that kids these days have that you didn't have, and some of the issues that you had that they also have, because some of the issues are going to remain the same, but a lot of them are going to change. Parenting methods. What kind of parenting methods are you going to keep, or not keep from your parents and how they parented you. Because it's not all bad, it's not all good. We can pick and choose. Do we attach our own self-identity and our kids' success? And I think in particular, our kids' academic success, like really be mindful. Like if my kid doesn't do well in math, it's going to be okay, and I'm going to be okay. And how do I relate my identity to my kid's success? The natural interest in experimentation, again, that is developmentally appropriate. But how can you as a parent, how did you experiment, and how can you foster a more safe environment for your kid to experiment? Because it's a pretty scary world right now. We live in a highly sexualized culture. It's much different than it was when we were kids. So what do you think that might be like for your kids? Technology. Zero technology when I was growing up. And now technology is everywhere. What do you think that's like? How might that be different from when you were a kid to how your kids' experience is? Also thinking about how you're setting an example. What example are you setting for your kids? As a parent, as a teacher to them, as a spouse, or as a single spouse. A single spouse doesn't make sense. A single parent. What's the example we set? If we make a mistake, are we apologizing? Are we cleaning up the mess that maybe we've made? And we all have. I think also thinking about the home environment, like what kind of experience are you providing for your kids? Is it chaotic? Is it quiet? Is it happy? Is it over-controlled? How is it for you when you were a kid, and what are you going to take from when you were a kid and recreate in your kids' world? And then taking preventative steps. We've all been teenagers. I know some of you are teenagers right now, but most of us are parents or adults, and we've all been teenagers. And I always know, reflecting back on my teenage years, I think there could have been some preventative steps, and that's really what I'm passionate about in my practice, is helping prevent a problem before it even happens, a large problem. So what preventative steps that you might take as a parent for your child? So emotional wellness leads to social ease, which creates an environment for academic success. And I love this statement, because I do believe that our emotional well-being does set the foundation for more social ease and more success academically, whatever that academic success might be. I wanted to make a note that if you do have a mental health issue, it doesn't mean that you're not going to be successful, or your child's not going to be successful. I think it's how we deal with our emotional health. If we have an issue, do we address it and talk about it and take care of it, or do we push it under the rug? So I do believe our emotional health, our mental health, really is the foundation for our kids and us to be successful. So emotionally on track, again, the foundation for success. The goal is to have emotional health, to be able to manage effectively our feelings, our thoughts, our behaviors, be able to navigate challenges, and keep perspective and be resilient. And I think all of these are so pertinent right now, because we've had difficulties in the past, and we're going to have other challenges in the future. That's just the nature of life. So this is an interesting time to teach our kids some of the skills that we have, or maybe we want to learn along with our kids, how to navigate challenges and how to set the stage for dealing with hard times, keeping perspective that this is going to end. This is temporary. Things will change. We don't know how it's going to change, but we're going to figure it out together. And that is part of resilience, is learning new skills to help us go along with change and go along with adversity. So emotionally on track, I love science, even though I'm not so great at explaining it. I just think it's so interesting. And the adolescent brain is very interesting. So I think this is good information just as parents to just kind of understand a little bit, like, what's going on with my kid here? So we have the frontal cortex, and that is responsible for executive functioning, like managing things, focus, being thoughtful, the logical part of our brain. And it's developing, and it's not fully developed until you're in your mid-20s. That is interesting to me. So we have our kids who are 15s that don't fully have this part of their brain developed. And we got to remember that. And then there's the amygdala. That is a portion of our brain that is developed at birth. It's fully developed at birth. And that's more of our emotional and reactive part of ourselves. So it's fully developed at birth. It's the part of our brain that processes big emotions and behaviors and fear. So I think that's interesting too, that these things kind of balance themselves out. You know, we have our amygdala already here, ready to react, and we have our frontal cortex, or that executive functioning part of our brain, that's still in the process of developing. So hang in there, folks. Hang in there, parents of teenagers. Behavior in the brain. So again, about brain development. This is, and I say this to parents a lot, that we're talking about explanations and not excuses. It's not like a kid can say, well, you know, it was my amygdala, or, you know, my frontal cortex is just not developed enough, Mom. That's how it goes. This is just to understand a little bit more about teen years and tween years. So adolescents are more likely to act impulsively, to misinterpret social cues and emotions, to be clumsy and get into accidents, be involved in fights, participate in dangerous or risky behavior. And I have a little guy jumping over, I don't know if you can see it, but he's jumping over a street. And I'm thinking, yes, I can see that. And then adolescents are less likely to think before they act or think about the consequences. I had a couple of questions and I thought they would fit in really well right here. One question is, my kids are having outbursts, misbehaving, and generally not behaving well. It reminds me of when they were little kids acting out. And then the other question was, my kid seems really irritable. How do I deal with this? So I think in terms of the outbursts, I think it's natural that during adversity and times of stress that we regress a little bit. Even I am a little bit, I have to say, but our teens in particular, and our tweens and our younger kids as well. So the stress and anxiety may be coming out more in behavioral issues, as opposed to articulating, I feel really scared that I can't see my best friend for who knows how long, or regressive behavior like, I don't want to sleep in my bed by myself. I believe that this will be temporary, that we're figuring this out together. We're gonna get to resolutions that are healthy and work for all of us. But right now, this is stressful. And I think I thought those are great questions, because, you know, when we think about outbursts and misbehaving, not that the pandemic is an excuse, but it kind of does explain, in my perspective, why some of these behaviors might be more amplified. And to address them, but also with the understanding that there might be an underlying concern there for your child. And then my kid seems really irritable. How do I deal with this? I think focusing on the body is really important. Like, I think the exercise factor, it's not my specialty, but it's just a hunch, to get some of that energy out and having structure. And when our kid is irritable, to have a conversation with them, like, hey, what's going on? You know, I noticed that you don't seem so happy. What's going on? Just an open conversation. And I suggest conversations as an ongoing interaction with your kid, because that's role modeling emotional health and emotional intelligence, and you get to know your kid a little bit better. So emotionally on track, some tips for parents. Again, I think I've said this before, I'll say it again, I'm sure I'm gonna say it again through this presentation, to be an emotional role model. How we behave, our kids are watching, our kids are listening. And not that we have to be perfect. We can get upset, we can have our own outbursts. It's how we manage what we do with those outbursts. Nurturing your child, making sure that you're giving a little extra TLC, a little extra I love you, or maybe a little extra foot rub here and there, and just dialing into some of those TLC needs of your child. Be a Q-tip. So be a Q-tip is quit taking it personally. And, you can take this with a grain of salt, because if your child is yelling at you and it's totally unacceptable, yes, of course, deal with that. But I think it's important to quit taking it personally in terms of maybe some of the more negative talk that our children might use, that I think it's our kids figuring out emotions and figuring out how to express it. And sometimes it comes out in an ugly way towards us parents. We're the safest ones that our kids can talk to and yell to. We can normalize with our kids. We can normalize feelings like, yeah, this is unusual. This is hard. This is a really difficult time, and to normalize that this is difficult. And again, to problem solve together, to teach your kids how to solve problems. And I have a 9 and an 11-year-old, and that's part of my mission, is to help them identify problems and solve them, or figure out how to manage them in a better way. I think also too, tips for parents is to consider genetics and temperament. Like if your child was already struggling with some big emotions or depression, anxiety, this is the time to continue mental health support or start mental health support, because these are the times that all of those feelings are going to be amplified. So specific to COVID-19 considerations for our kids, paying attention to their feelings. I really want to know how they're feeling. How were they before and how are they now? And helping them process and talk about those feelings through conversations. Having extra patience and understanding with our kids and ourselves. Encouraging self-care for our kids. I don't think it's okay to stay in PJs all day. Sorry, guys. I think that there needs to be some structure. It doesn't have to look the same as it did during school. There could, it could be a little bit more relaxed, but I do think that having some self-care, and that involves bathing and eating and going outside at least once a day, and helping us help ourselves through self-care. And then vulnerability factors. During COVID-19, I think our tweens and teens, our kids in general, are more vulnerable. There is so much loss. There's loss of structure. There's loss of social interactions. There's loss of being with friends, whether that's a positive or negative influence, we don't know. But there's a loss of communicating with friends, teachers, coaches, and there's more reliance on technology. I mean, that's how we're connecting with everybody. And I feel like it makes our kids in particular a little bit more vulnerable. All right, we're going to move on to socially on track. So every kid faces peer pressure, societal expectations, academic anxiety, and cultural influences that are not always in their best interest. And I think, again, there is an increase in the vulnerability in our teens. I put this slide together. It seems kind of old school, but I don't know. I just think about all the different kinds of kids and kind of labels or groups that kids identify themselves in. I just thought it was kind of interesting to know popular girls, outsiders, skaters. We didn't have druggies when I was a kid. It was stoners, but it's different now and it's a lot scarier now. But just that our kids are learning who they are, especially as teenagers and teenagers, kind of trying on different hats and seeing who they are and how they are in the world. Some concerns that our kids have to be aware of: bullying right now, cyberbullying. I think maybe now more than ever that we're sheltering at home and dependent on our virtual lives. I think bullying is a topic to be concerned about. Frenemies, best friends, and then enemies, and figuring out the relationship aspects. Relationships, maybe some kids are starting to date, and who they're dating and how they're dating is of concern and interest. Drugs and alcohol is huge. I think when our kids are partaking with drugs and alcohol, there's partly that social aspect of it that I just want to try it. Everyone's doing it. Not everyone's doing it, guys. And then why? I'm always curious when someone comes to my office, like, what is it doing for you? Are you feeling more at ease in a social situation? Do you not know how to say no? I think drugs and alcohol, that's a whole another webinar, and it's an interesting topic. Sexuality. Kids at this age are figuring out who they are. We live in 2020. It's a lot different from when I was growing up, and there's a lot more flexibility in sexual identification. And I think that's fabulous. I fully support it. And I think it can be confusing sometimes for kids because there's a lot of choices. But I'm so grateful that we live in a society that is more accepting and open to who we really are. Body image. So we're more online now, and we're looking at body image. I was watching a cartoon with my daughter this morning, and there are still issues with how body image is displayed. Technology is a concern. Academics, how we look at academics, the importance of it. Are we within a realistic expectation of our kids doing well, or they're not pushing themselves enough? Our kids are concerned with fitting in, family life, and adulting. And family life, I think, is important just to look at your own family. Are you a happily functioning family? Are you a happily functioning divorced and blended family? What are the different aspects of that to be concerned about and to think about? So some tips, providing those opportunities for kids to make new relationships, have new experiences, encouraging healthy choices, because our kids are going to experiment, and it could be experimenting with green hair, or it could be experimenting with something that is a little bit more risky. So just helping guide those choices, helping our kids with communication skills, and that's modeling it. And a lot of families come to me, and everybody can learn more communication skills. I'm always sharpening that skill for myself as well. Being accepting, and again, problem solving skills. There's another question here that I thought was interesting. Let me finish this first. COVID-19 era considerations. So encouraging social interactions, and that's where this question comes in. Family time, fitness, and healthy lifestyle. So are you eating well? Are your kids eating well? I think that impacts our social life as well. This question is really interesting. How do we keep our kids socially up to speed? This person is worried that kids are not initiating interactions or satisfied with being alone, that they're okay just staying in the house. And how much do I prod them to talk to their friends? Is this normal? They seem isolated, and to be isolating themselves. So again, if you have a concern, I would reach out to someone. But that being said, I think that sometimes we as parents put our own anxieties on our kids. Like, they might be fine. They might be adjusting to this new normal for this temporary period, and they might be just fine, and we're creating assumptions that this is not okay or this is a problem. I think fostering connections online with face-to-face is really important and really nice, more so than just talking on the phone, because I want to see a face. That's why at the beginning of this, I wanted to see all of your faces, because I want to connect with you. So again, it's balancing our concerns with our kids' concerns. There's another question about, I'm worried about screen time and how to manage it. Our life now is so much more dependent on screen time. I think adding activities outside of the screen is more effective than limiting screen time. It just seems to work a little bit better than having the focus on limitation. The focus is on enrichment and adding to that. Okay. So academic success, looking at the time, we're doing well. So what is academic success? Because every parent, I think, has their own idea of what academic success is. And that's something I think we need to be aware of, that we're not putting our own hopes on our kids. Academic success to me is being able to learn. It's a learning process expertise, that a child knows how to learn. It's increasing subject knowledge, and it's developing skills. And whether those skills are to be able to do a complex math problem, or maybe real world budgeting, with numbers and dollars and things like that. But to me, academic success are those three things. I think the mere expectation of academic success can be stressful. And again, that's a fine line, because we want our children to do as best as they can, but we also want to be realistic. So do they know how to learn? And that's an interesting subject. Do they know how to take in information, process it, and retain it? And to be realistic with our children's abilities. Are we pushing them, or are we not pushing them enough? Do we need to push them? Being realistic with temperament and academic abilities. What does your kid need to be successful? That could be so many different things. It could be the environment. It could be the way the material is presented. We have all different kinds of learners. And then what might be getting in our kids' way? What could we do to help them be successful, basically? And organizational skills. That's really important. And I still, to this day, am learning organizational skills, because it's important, it's helpful, and it helps us be successful. So being academically on track, we can assist with organization. I always feel like if a kid is not organized, they need some assistance. It's again, that skill. It's skill versus will. I don't think kids want to be messy. I don't want to be messy. I need to still learn that skill. A clutter-free workspace, lots of focus on that in terms of helping with the executive functioning success of organization, focus, and then getting your child help if needed. So that could be in the form of a tutor. I know that some of my clients are getting tutors online. I think that's really great. This is the time to get more support, not less support. So if your child needs help emotionally or socially, let's get them some help. Let's get them some guidance. Let's get them support. And if your child needs help with academics, this is a great time to get tutoring as well. Specifically to COVID-19, the home study space is really important, where that is, what it looks like, how it's organized. I think too, to consider that we are really in a crisis homeschooling situation. It's not really homeschooling, it's different. And that to understand that during our expectations. To have realistic goal setting, like understanding your child and what they're capable of doing. Giving your child reassurance. Some kids are worried that school won't go back in the fall. We don't know. I don't know. We don't know. So just giving reassurance that it's going to be okay. We're going to figure it out. We're going to figure it out together. We may not know what it's going to look like, but we're going to figure it out together. And then quality time. During the time that we're with our kids, I think quality time can assist with their academics and their social life and their emotional life. So let's see if we have another question. I'm going to go to this one, and then I'll see if Mackenzie, if you have any questions. So how to seek help. And I always feel like seeking help is a sign of strength. It's a sign of mindfulness and awareness to say things could be better. And maybe someone who does this all the time can help my child. So whether that's emotional, social, academic, I support going to the professionals and learning from them. A non-urgent need for how to seek help. And now during COVID-19 especially, the school counselor and the teacher. Reaching out to the teacher that this is difficult or my child's struggling. Pediatrician or family doctor to get a referral for a mental health care provider or a tutor. This is my, I love these two next resources, and I listed them under non-urgent and urgent needs because they're for both, and they're wonderful. So it's the Teen Lifeline. It's a crisis line. You can call, your teen can call, and there'll be a live person there to talk you through what's going on and help guide you. And then I love this crisis text line. It's a 24-hour, 7-day-a-week text line. And for me, I'm not super tech savvy, but all of you, you know, teenagers and teenagers, you're on your phone. You know how to use your phone like an expert. All you do is you text 741-741, you text the word home, and there is a live crisis responder there to talk to you and see how they can help you. And it's through text, it's anonymous, it's fabulous. Psychology Today is an online directory for therapists. There's a lot of great therapists out there, and I like that directory because you can see someone's face and read a little bit about them. There's the Scottsdale Youth Community Coalition. Our website will be up. I'm hoping in a week, and we again have resources not just for Scottsdale but for youth in general, and it's anything from finding a therapist to finding an event to finding a service or resource. And then again, you're welcome to reach out to me for if you have further questions or want to talk about any concerns. Urgent needs is important, and I think urgent needs right now is really important to discuss because our feelings are amplified and our concerns are amplified. So there's the suicide prevention lifeline. Again, call up and talk to someone, see what they have to say. I always say, let's be safe, not sorry. There's the Impact 24-hour crisis line. They can actually come out to your home if they deem it necessary. And then again, my two favorites. And then if all else fails and you are in a crisis, you don't know what to do, call 911 and they will further direct you to where you need to be. Okay, so I just gave you so much information, everybody. It's a lot. I appreciate you listening. Again, if you would like to reach out to me, this is my contact information. Thank you for listening. Thank you to Fusion for hosting me, and Fusion is having some other presentations that are really interesting, so maybe check out their website. And thank you, Mackenzie, for having me, and I'm done. If there are any questions.
Rachel, I do have another question
okay.
that was submitted by a couple of people. They were asking about grief. Would you mind talking a little bit more about grief and ways to express that?
So grief. So I think about grief, so grief and loss. That's an interesting question because I think the awareness that there is grief, that there is sadness is important, and to be able to acknowledge that with your child, not necessarily to tell them they're feeling grief, but to kind of have that in your mindset as you're talking with your child about their experience. You know, what do you think about not going back to your school again? And hearing what your kid has to say, and asking your child too, like, how do you think we could make that better? What do you think we could do about that? And kids come up with the most amazing ideas. You know, do we write a letter to the teacher saying thank you and goodbye? When do we send that? Do we send that? How do we connect, and how do we feel that loss experience? Because it's pretty natural. And there's loss. We as parents and adults have loss, and our kids are having loss and grief issues too. That's an interesting question. Is there anything else, Mackenzie? Anything that you thought?
Nope, that will wrap it up.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much, Rachel. That was certainly a powerful presentation. I really appreciate you putting this together for our families. As you mentioned at the beginning, this is something that we actually discussed putting together in January, but you were so kind to pivot your presentation to reflect how to support kiddos during the COVID era. So thank you so much. I know this is a lot of valuable information that parents can use to support their kids. And for everyone who participated today and who were a part of the presentation, I appreciate you being here today. We hope you enjoy this presentation and hope to see you at another webinar in the future. Thank you and have a great day.
Bye, everyone. Stay safe.
Bye.
Bye.